I didn't know that Father's Day would be the day I'd disappear from my family's lives, not by death, but by silence. 1 minute I was surrounded by voices I helped raise, laughter I thought I had earned, and the next I was sitting on a cold plastic chair in a room that smelled like bleach and forgotten people, staring at a window that never opened. That was 3 years ago. They haven't visited since. You see, people think abandonment comes with a slam of a door or a shouted argument. Mine came quietly, with forced smiles, vague promises, and a car ride that ended at the gates of a nursing home. They told me it was temporary. I believed them, foolishly. I used to believe I was a good father. I wasn't perfect. Lord knows I made my share of mistakes, but I loved them. God, I loved them. So when I overheard the truth one rainy afternoon, the real reason they left me there, something inside me broke. This isn't just a story about getting old. It's a story about betrayal, about the quiet heartbreak that creeps in when the people you lived for act like you never existed. There's more. Something happened last Christmas, something no one expected, and it changed everything. So if you've ever felt invisible, unwanted, or left behind by the ones you love most, stay with me. My story might be painful, but you're not alone. If this touched you in any way, please like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more untold stories to light. I should have known from the beginning. The way my wife's hands trembled as she poured my coffee. The too sweet smile my daughter forced as she handed me the card. Hallmark, cheap. No message inside but Happy Father's Day scrawled in her barely legible script. And then there was my son, smoothing down my collar like I was about to meet someone important. "Wear the navy one, Dad," he'd said. "The one with the elbow patches. The one with the moth hole under the collar. The sweater I used to wear to parent-teacher nights and funerals." Apparently, today was both. The silence in the car gnawed at me. It wasn't peaceful. It was deliberate. No radio, no idle chatter. My wife sat rigid in the passenger seat, fingers knotted like she was praying. I watched her from the back, hoping for some sign, a smile, a glance, anything human, but she wouldn't meet my eyes in the mirror, just kept her gaze fixed forward, jaw tight. I thought maybe we were going to brunch, that someone had planned a surprise, that the tension was just the awkwardness of pretending they hadn't forgotten again. Then we pulled up to St. Eileen's Care Facility, a squat, colorless building with an optimistic maroon awning and dead hydrangeas out front. I stared at the sign like it was written in another language. It didn't make sense, not yet. My wife turned in her seat. Her voice was too gentle. "Just for a little while, to rest, okay? We all thought it would be best." We? My daughter was already out of the car, opening my door, taking my arm like I'd suddenly lost the use of my legs. I let her guide me because I didn't know what else to do. I could feel my breath going shallow, could feel the questions rising in my throat, thick and sour. "Come on, Dad," she said, her voice brittle. "It's not permanent, just until things settle." What things? What were they not saying? My son handed me my suitcase, the one I used on business trips. It looked absurd in this context, small and almost comical. I could see the guilt all over his face, but he said nothing, didn't even hug me. But my daughter did. She wrapped her arms around me like a little girl again, like she used to do when she had nightmares. Only this time her arms felt more like restraint than comfort, and she didn't cry. That's how I knew. The doors shut behind me with a hiss. They didn't look back. Inside, the world changed. The air was heavy with bleach and old paper. The kind of smell that gets under your skin. The kind of smell that says, "You've been left behind." A nurse in pale green scrubs greeted me with a rehearsed smile. "Mr. Hargrove, welcome. We're so glad you're here." I didn't answer. I couldn't. I sat in the chair they pointed to, vinyl, cold, sterile, and felt everything drain out of me. My bones, my memory, my voice. This isn't rest. This isn't temporary. This is abandonment, packaged with a ribbon and a smile. And they think I don't know. They tell you time heals. What they don't tell you is how quiet it gets in the meantime. Deafeningly, horrifyingly quiet. The days here bleed into one another. The same watery oatmeal at breakfast. The same rerun of Jeopardy flickering on the corner television, the volume too low to catch the questions, too high to ignore. A nurse named Dana offers me my pills with a voice too cheerful, like she's trying to convince herself this isn't a graveyard with beds. I start memorizing things. The cracks in the ceiling above my bed look like a map of a place I'll never go. There's one that looks like a lightning bolt, another like a tree branch. I count them, recount. Some days I pretend they're growing, reaching for each other. Other days I hope they split open and swallow me whole. At first I asked when my family would visit. Dana would smile too tight and say, "They're probably just busy, honey." Then a shrug. Eventually, even that stopped. Now she just pats my shoulder like I'm a dog who's forgotten the word home. My birthday came. There was a cupcake. It had a candle. I didn't blow it out. Wishes feel ridiculous when no one remembers what you're wishing for. Thanksgiving passed in silence, save for the distant clatter of utensils in the dining hall. A man named Arthur, who calls everyone Margaret, whether they're male or female, tried to cut his turkey with a spoon. He laughed. I didn't. A staff member, maybe it was Dana, maybe someone else, they blur together now, said they called my son. Left a message. "Maybe he's traveling," she said, voice like tissue paper. "Maybe it's just hard right now." Hard. I wonder if they know what hard actually feels like. If they've ever watched the people they built their lives around lock the door and throw away the key. I stopped asking after that. I stopped pretending. Instead, I write letters I never send. Scrawled on yellow legal pads they keep in the activity room. I hide them in my drawer, under a sweater no one ever comes to collect. I don't even write "dear" anymore, just words. Words I don't say aloud because saying them makes them real. In one I write, "What did I do so wrong that love stopped knocking?" In another, "If I disappeared, would you even notice the quiet got quieter?" Sometimes I imagine slipping those letters under my door like messages in a bottle, but even if someone found them, what then? They'd end up in the trash, or worse, returned to sender. The silence now doesn't just exist, it expands. It swells inside me like a tide. It presses against my ribs, creeps into my throat, hums in my ears until I forget what voices sound like. Especially the ones that used to say, "Dad," like it meant something. It doesn't echo anymore. It screams. The rain started before lunch, soft at first, like a whisper, but now it pounds the window like fists, furious, unrelenting, like it's trying to break in. Or maybe it's trying to wake me up. I sit in the same chair I've claimed since the first morning, beside the small square window cracked at the edge, facing the parking lot. The sky is smeared with greys. Not a single car has pulled in today. Not even a delivery truck. Just rain, just silence, just me. The nurses think I can't hear them. They whisper like children with secrets. Just outside the door. But these walls, they echo everything. "He still thinks they'll come back," one says, her voice thick with pity. "It's kind of sad." The other chuckles, that low, cruel kind of laugh that knows better. They said he was too much, too needy, too emotional. Too much. The phrase hits me like a slap, sharp and humiliating, like my love was a stain they couldn't scrub out. I feel it bloom inside my chest. That old familiar ache. The one I used to feel when my daughter would pull away from my embrace. or my wife would flinch when I cried during a movie. I was the kind of man who cried, the kind who remembered anniversaries and left little notes in lunchboxes. Maybe that's what they meant by too much. I lean my forehead against the glass. It's cold and I welcome it. Anything to remind me I'm still here, still real, still feeling. When I close my eyes, I see her, my youngest, barely 7, legs swinging from the back seat, drawing smiley faces in the fogged-up car window. She used to giggle every time she made one, naming each with impossible names like Glitterfuzz or Banana Toes. I dreamt of her last night. In that same back seat, the window foggy, the rain falling just like this. Only this time she didn't draw a face. She wrote something. I couldn't read it. I woke up gasping, heart slamming against my ribs like a trapped bird. I didn't call for help. Didn't press the button next to the bed. I just lay there, staring into the ceiling like it might open up and explain everything. Explain why love becomes a burden. Explain why absence feels louder than any goodbye. Explain how a family disappears in front of you without ever slamming the door. I haven't asked about visitors in days. Haven't asked what time it is or when the next meal is coming. Everything tastes the same anyway, like cardboard, like memory. Maybe this is what giving up looks like. Not dramatic, just quiet, slow, like the rain. Steady, dull, unrelenting. And still, somewhere deep beneath the weight of humiliation and heartbreak, a question lingers. Did I love too hard? Or just not the way they needed? She drifted in like fog, slowly, silently, as if the air itself parted to let her pass. Margot, that's what the nurses called her, though I never saw her answer to it. Not at first. She wore cardigans too big for her frame and moved like she was afraid the floor might disappear beneath her feet. Her grey hair was always neatly pinned, her lipstick carefully drawn on trembling lips. A woman still trying to hold on to something, dignity maybe, or the illusion of it. She hummed. That's what struck me. Soft lullabies under her breath, like someone singing to a child that no longer existed. I'd hear it at night, faint and eerie, weaving through the sterile hallways like a ghost's lullaby. All the pretty little horses. No one else seemed to notice her. Or maybe they'd stopped seeing her the way people stop seeing wallpaper. But I did. One evening, I offered her my pudding cup at dinner. I hated the vanilla kind. She took it with a smile so gentle it felt like an apology. You remind me of my Walter, she said. I didn't ask who Walter was. We both had ghosts, and naming them gave them too much power. We started sitting together, me in my chair by the window, her carefully lowering herself into the one across from me, as if the act of sitting was something she had to relearn each day. We didn't talk much at first, just existed near each other, like two old trees still standing after the forest burned down. But then the story started. I had a boy, she said one day, her eyes fixed on the window, far past the trees. He stopped calling after he got married. 8 years now. No call, not even a damn postcard. I told her about Father's Day, about the sweater, about the silence in the car. Bastards, she muttered and squeezed my hand. After that she started calling me sweetheart, and I let her. I didn't correct her. I think in some strange way we both needed someone to call and someone to be called. We made up stories about the other residents, gave them backstories, motives, secrets. It was childish maybe, but it made the hours less cruel. For a little while I forgot where I was. But then came Tuesday. Her chair sat empty at breakfast. I figured she was late, a fall maybe, a nurse helping her with her pills. But lunch came and went, dinner too. Her door was wide open by evening, and her bed was stripped. The painting she hung, a faded landscape of a beach, crooked and sun-bleached, was gone. Her room looked like it had never been lived in. I asked the nurse. She smiled, too rehearsed. "I'm sure she's fine, Mr. Hargrove. Don't you worry." But no one said her name again. No explanation, no goodbye. And just like that, she was erased. And I was alone. Again. It arrived in a pile of glittery nonsense. Snowmen, Santas, kids with sticky fingers who think every old person wants to hear about their school play. I barely glanced through them except to nod politely at the volunteer who'd handed them out. She was young, hopeful, still believed kindness fixed things. But one envelope caught my eye. Cream-colored, no return address, no stamp either. Hand-delivered, maybe. The handwriting was small, careful, familiar in a way that tightened something in my chest. I turned it over twice before opening it. My fingers hesitated at the flap, like whatever was inside might bite. 3 words. "I forgive you." That was it. No name, no signature, just that. Like a whisper shouted into the void. The handwriting, it wasn't recent. It had the same slight right slant my wife used when she was still writing notes in cursive, back when people still wrote anything by hand. The same soft loops, the capital I with a faint curve, like a hook. My throat went dry. It couldn't be her. She'd stopped writing to me years ago, long before the silence, before the resting period that became permanent, before she started sleeping on the other side of the bed with her back turned to me, even when the air between us froze. I read the note a dozen times, each reading changing the weight of those 3 words. Sometimes they felt like mercy, other times like accusation. Forgive me for what? For forgetting our anniversary that year, she cried herself to sleep. For working too many hours. For losing my temper that night after dinner when the bills were overdue and the fridge was half empty. Or was it something else entirely? Something darker, something I'd buried so deep I'd convinced myself it never happened. That night I dreamed of snow, thick and wet, the kind that muffles the world into silence. My wife stood in the front yard, coat open, face tilted to the sky, and I could smell her perfume. That vanilla lavender mix she wore when we were still pretending to love each other. She didn't speak, just smiled like she knew something I didn't, like she was already on the other side of something. When I woke up, the card was still in my drawer. I stared at it until the sun rose. Then I wrote back. I didn't know what else to do. "I don't know what I did, but I'm sorry if it hurt you. I'm sorry if I forgot how to be the man you needed." There was no address. I sealed it anyway, folded it neatly, placed it back with the original. The next morning it was gone, not misplaced, not blown away by the drafty window. Gone, like it had never been there, like someone or something had taken it. And now I'm left with a question that won't let me sleep. What does forgiveness mean when you don't understand what you're being forgiven for? She came in quiet. No loud clatter of shoes, no clipboard shield, just a softness, like rain tapping at the window, there but not demanding. Her name tag read, Elise, and her smile wasn't painted on like the others. It felt borrowed from another life, maybe a better one. Elise didn't ask about my blood pressure. She didn't fuss with my chart. She just stood there, eyes steady and calm, like she was waiting for something to happen naturally. And when I didn't speak, she didn't rush to fill the silence. She waited. It wasn't until her 3rd night that she asked, so gently it almost didn't register, "Do you want to talk about them?" Them. My family. My ghosts. I hadn't said their names out loud since the door closed behind them. I kept them in pieces. Fractured memories, dulled by the clinical brightness of this place. I thought talking would make it worse, that giving them breath again would shred what little was left of me. But her voice held space, not pity, space. So I told her. Everything. How my daughter used to sleep with her hand curled around my pinky. How my wife used to cry at Folgers commercials and then laugh at herself for it. How my son once swore he'd build me a house next to his when he made it big. I told Elise about the sweaters I wore just to feel their smell, about the last hug, the last look, the way no one said, "I love you," when they left me here. And she listened like it mattered, like I mattered. Her eyes didn't gloss over, she didn't interrupt. And when I paused, lost in my own shame, she said something I didn't expect. "I left my father too." It felt like a confession, not a conversation. "It haunts me," she said. "He called once, just to ask if I needed anything. I said I was busy. I was always busy." She looked away then. Not because she was ashamed, because she didn't want me to see her cry. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say, because in that moment I realized something neither of us had admitted out loud. We were both haunted. We were both left behind. One by family, one by herself. She handed me a notebook the next night, just a plain one, no lines. "You should write," she said. "Not to them, to yourself." I almost laughed, but her face stayed kind, solid, so I opened the cover. My hand shook like it didn't know how to hold a pen anymore, and I wrote, "Dear me, I'm sorry you were never enough for them. But you are still here." The ink bled a little, I let it, and for the first time in months I slept without dreaming of the door. The photo wasn't supposed to be there. Elise had only gone to the records room to find my allergy list, an innocent errand, but returned clutching a faded envelope like it was on fire. "Look what I found," she said softly, as if afraid of what it might do to me. Inside, a single photograph, edges curled, colors washed out by time, but unmistakable. Me, barely 25, clean-shaven, thinner, unwrinkled. Eyes bright in a way I can no longer imitate, no matter how hard I try. I was crouched on a sun-drenched porch, arms looped around a boy with sandy brown curls and a grin too wide for his face. My son, my first son, before jobs, before mortgages, before the disappointments we both stopped acknowledging. That photo captured us before life got complicated. I stared at the image, blinked. The memory hit like heat from a long-forgotten sun. His first steps, wobbly, triumphant, arms flapping like tiny wings. The way he screamed the first time he scraped his knee, more from the betrayal of the world than the pain. That high fever when he was 6, cheeks flushed, soaked in sweat. I had paced our hallway all night, pressing cool cloths to his forehead, whispering promises to a God I wasn't sure I believed in. And then that night, he couldn't sleep. Nightmares, monsters in the closet. So I sat by his bed and sang. Badly. Off-key. But he smiled and smiled, eyes fluttering shut as I sang some old lullaby I didn't even know I knew. I wasn't perfect. God knows I wasn't even always good, but I was there. I traced the edges of the photo, my fingers trembling. I want to reach into it, to tap that young man on the shoulder and warn him, tell him not to let the distance creep in. Tell him to call more, to listen more, to soften faster, to fight for the connection before it fractures. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the image, not to my son. "I'm not ready for that yet," but to him, that younger version of me, so full of love he didn't know how to hold it all. That man who thought presence was enough. That night, for the first time in months, I dream not of endings, but of beginnings. I see my boy laughing, chasing bubbles in the backyard, his tiny hands reaching for mine. I feel the sunlight again. I smell cut grass and burnt toast and hear his voice, small, unfiltered, real. I wake with a smile on my lips. It doesn't last. The tears come quick, sharp, guilt laced with longing. But the ache is different this time, not just pain, possibility. Because maybe, just maybe, there's still something left to fix. Maybe the door isn't locked. only stuck. Hope hurts, it's intrusive, uninvited, but tonight it feels like light seeping under a door that was never meant to stay closed, and I let it in. The air smells like cinnamon and bleach, a strange combination, the scent of holidays and sterile sorrow. Tinsel dangles from the light fixtures like it's trying too hard. There's a fake tree in the lobby, perfectly symmetrical, dressed in gold ornaments and red bows, but it doesn't flicker warmth into the room. It's too precise, like someone followed a diagram on how joy is supposed to look. I sit near the entrance, my coat buttoned, though I'm not going anywhere. I like to pretend I might, that if someone walked in, someone I once loved, I could rise without effort, meet them at the door, and walk out into a life that didn't abandon me. I stare at those automatic doors until my eyes sting, and then they part. For a second I think I'm imagining her, my daughter. Elise, she's different now, thinner, her face drawn like she's been carrying too many ghosts, her hair pulled back in a loose, tired bun. She's crying before she even reaches me, her steps hesitant like she doesn't believe she deserves to be here. I don't stand. I can't. Something in me is frozen, caught between memory and shock. She kneels in front of me. Her hands hover over mine like she's afraid they'll disappear. "I didn't know how to come back," she says. The words are broken glass, sharp, honest. They slice through months of silence, of birthdays missed and phone calls unanswered, of Sunday afternoons when I sat by the window, rehearsing what I'd say if she ever returned. "You just did," I whisper. "And it's enough." She reaches into her coat and pulls out a folded piece of paper. Her fingers tremble as she hands it to me. I don't need to open it to know what it is. I recognize the creases, the ink-stained edge, the letter, the one I wrote to myself. A silly thing. Therapy, they said. Write what you wish someone would say to you. I never imagined it would find its way to her. "Elise sent it," she says quietly. She said, "You wrote it for yourself, but maybe someone else needed to read it too." Her voice cracks. "I did, Dad. I needed to remember who you were before I got so lost." I don't say anything. Words feel too small for what's happening, so I do what I can. I reach for her hand. It's warm, real. A tether pulling me back from the ledge I've been sitting on. We sit like that, in the lobby, in the quiet, just breathing, letting the moment stretch, unbothered by the passage of time or the blinking of holiday lights. Forgiveness doesn't roar. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives like this, soft, worn, and long overdue. Outside, snow begins to fall. Inside, for the first time in months, I let myself hope. Just a little, enough to start again. The tea was lukewarm, steeped too long, the bag still floating, forgotten, like a memory we didn't know how to throw away. She sat across from me, in the plastic chair that squeaked when she shifted, legs crossed tight like she was afraid of spilling over. Her hands cradled the chipped mug I'd borrowed from the rec room. It said, "World's Best Grandpa," in faded blue letters, though no one here knew who gave it to me. Maybe no one ever had. "I should have come sooner," she said, voice cracking like glass underfoot. I didn't answer. Not yet. She looked older than I remembered, though she was still young. Too young to carry this kind of guilt. Her hair was longer now, tied back in a soft braid, and when she blinked I caught the tremble in her lashes. She hadn't worn makeup. I could tell she hadn't planned this visit. Maybe she was driving past and the weight in her chest finally tipped the scale. "My mother was sick," she said, "for a long time, longer than we told you." I stared at her, the space between us heavy with words we'd left unsaid for years. I waited for more. "She didn't want you to know. She thought you'd try to fix it. And she didn't want to be fixed." The silence wrapped around us again. I reached for my own cup, untouched. The tea was bitter now, too strong, like regret that had steeped too long. She told us, right before the end, she whispered. She said, "Don't let him see me like this." She took a shaky breath. So we didn't. The decision, the facility, the way they left me like a misplaced box. It had all been panic, self-preservation dressed up as protection. I could feel my chest tighten, the pressure of wanting to be angry but having nowhere to put it. "I regret it every day," she said. Her eyes finally met mine. I wanted to do better, be better, but I was scared and grieving and selfish. I watched her as she lowered her head, like a child awaiting punishment, but I didn't have anger left in me, only ache, only the quiet truth that forgiveness sometimes is a kind of survival. "I forgive you," I said, though it scraped on the way out. And it was true, mostly. The ache would linger, but it didn't need to rule me. She cried then. Not a dramatic weep, but a quiet unraveling, tears that fell without sobs, the kind that sneak out when you've held them in for too long. "I want my kids to know you," she said, wiping at her cheeks. "You deserve that." I nodded, my throat too tight for words. A part of me that had been sleeping began to stir. Later, when she left, I took the photo from the drawer, the one of all of us. On that summer trip, before the distance, before the lies. I hung it by the window where the light hit just right. Not for nostalgia, but because for the first time in a long time, I believed someone might look at it and remember. And maybe come back. I write one last letter, not to them, not to myself, but to whoever finds it next. Maybe it's you. Maybe you're sitting in the same chair by the same window, wondering how everything came undone, wondering how people can leave what they once swore to protect, wondering if it was you, if you were too much or not enough, if you faded before they let go, or if they let go first and then you started to fade. Let me tell you the truth, I learned far too late. You are not your abandonment, you are your resilience. They did leave me, but they came back, not all at once and not with fireworks. No violins, no dramatic apologies, just a knock on the door one Sunday, a drawing left on the nightstand, a cardigan draped over my shoulders without a word. My granddaughter came first. She barreled in with pigtails and crayons and no idea of the weight this place carries. She saw me, not my room, not the peeling wallpaper or the meds lined up like silent soldiers. Just me, her grandpa, still worthy of her mess and her joy. Then Elise, my daughter, started coming on her days off. She didn't say much, but she didn't have to. Sometimes presence is apology, and forgiveness, I've found, is often quieter than we imagine. She brought her guitar once, the same one she used to sneak out with in high school when she was chasing some boy with a band and a beanie. She sat on the edge of my bed and played the song I used to hum while making pancakes. Moon River, slow and cracked, but it gutted me. She didn't cry and neither did I. We just breathed through it. Margot's lullaby still lives in my head. Sometimes I whisper it to myself before I sleep. It's funny, I don't even remember all the words, but the feeling remains. That soft, aching warmth of being wanted, even just for a moment. And now the door to my room stays open. The hallway noise doesn't bother me anymore. I hear laughter, and instead of mourning what I lost, I marvel at what's returned. Not everything is fixed. Some wounds don't close. They scar, they stay. But scars mean you survived something, that something tried to ruin you and failed. So to you, the one reading this, know that you are not forgotten. Even when it feels like everyone walked out, someone, somewhere, will walk back in. Maybe not today. Maybe not the ones you expected. But love returns in strange forms. Mine came with markers and lullabies. And now, when I wake up in the morning, I don't brace myself for another empty day. I just breathe and smile, because I'm not waiting anymore. I'm living again. If this story moved you, please like the video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Every click helps us tell more stories that matter. You're not alone.